Just a heads up, this episode contains explicit language and discussion of sex and sex work. It may not be appropriate for young ears. All right, on to the show. Hey everyone, you're listening to Code Switch from NPR. I'm B.A. Parker.
And I'm Gene Demby.
Now, Gene, I want to talk to you today about a show that I'm absolutely obsessed with.
I need y'all to say this with me now. Mercedes.
Have you ever watched P-Valley?
You know, Parker, it has been on my list for a long time, but I actually have not gotten a chance to see it yet.
Oh my gosh, you've got to.
So you obviously have feelings. I want to hear all of it. Just lay it all on me.
All right, so listen. It's steamy and saucy and introspective. It contains multitudes.
Okay.
So basically, P-Valley is this dreamy, Southern Gothic, Black womanist soap of a show that that focuses on the lives of strippers in this fictitious town called Chucalissa, Mississippi. The strippers work at a club called The Pink. That's P-Y-N-K.
Pink booty battle. First up, we got Blue Cinnamon.
Okay.
And usually the way that strippers are portrayed on TV is this one-dimensional, world-weary single mom.
Mm-hmm. Or the stripper with the heart of gold.
Exactly, but that's not P-Valley. In fact, you can tell from the first bars of the opening theme song that this is not your mama's stripper show.
I don't think my mom has a stripper show.
But, as I said, the show isn't just steamy. You've got these amazing characters. There's the always glamorous Uncle Clifford, who is the owner of The Pink.
Rule number 45.22. Leave your baby daddy drama at home.
There's Mercedes, who is the hit-strong veteran stripper who keeps trying to retire, but she can't.
Just when she thought she was out, they keep pulling her back in.
Exactly.
I'm just saying, my milkshake brings all the boys to the yard. And with all I've been doing...
And then there's Keyshawn, who is this dreamer struggling to become a star and dealing with her abusive husband.
Hey, what did he say?
He was just hollering and screaming about wearing a mask.
Oh, you got another complaints before.
And the second season of the show, which is wrapping up this month, follows them all as they try to save the Pink from being sold.
So I've seen a lot of discourse around P-Valley, but I haven't obviously seen the show itself. I've seen a lot of people tweeting about, the way it portrays Black women and sex work. I've seen people arguing about whether the accents are accurate, right? Because it's set in Mississippi. I've seen people talking about how beautifully shot it is. And all the people I know in real life who really rock with this show are Southern Black women. I guess you are kind of, sort of, right?
Yeah, because we love mess.
Everybody loves mess, though.
But we love mess.
Okay, fair enough.
No, okay. P-Valley first premiered in the summer of 2020 and has gained such a strong following since. The first episode of the second season had more than 4.5 million viewers across platforms.
Oof.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk to the mastermind behind this hit show, Katori Hall. And by the way, Gene, Katori Hall is the creator of P-Valley, which is impressive enough on its own, but she's an award-winning playwright. She won the Pulitzer Prize for drama for her 2021 play, The Hot Wing King.
Okay.
And P-Valley started out as a play as well, and it was inspired by her childhood growing up in Memphis, Tennessee.
And I actually grew up, like a lot of folks, I will say, going to strip clubs. Started probably too young, but, when you would go into a club, you would see just this amazing spectacle. I think Southern strip clubs specifically, there tends to be more of a show. It's not just about stripping and taking off your clothes, taking off your top. It's really about these athletic sets that you get to see and throw money at the women, right? And so it was just part of my upbringing in terms of, Southern culture and seeing that and kind of being a participatory observer of the culture. So fast forward, I had moved up to New York, just attending school, living my young adult, fabulous New York City life. And I actually started taking pole dancing classes at Crunch Gym, I remember. And in that moment, I realized
How'd that go?
I was just about to say, I almost threw up, actually, on my first day because I was on the pole and I just kept on spinning around and around and around. And then I was like, I'll be right back. I'll be right back. And I had to run to the bathroom. So in that moment, it kind of crystallized for me how hard what these women do is. And I figured out, I should probably make a story out of this. I was, just inspired by the kind of super-hero-ness of the women that I had, grown up seeing on the pole and then trying to do it myself. So I embarked on this 6-year-long journey from that point of doing research. I sat across from over 40 women over that time. I went to over 40 strip clubs.
Respect.
Oh, yeah. I did that journalism thing, really, really did a huge deep dive.
Yo.
I did everything but audition. I was like, man, I should have went up on that stage. I should have, because I had done the class, but I should have just gone ahead and went all the way. But I kind of, that's the thing. It takes a lot of bravery, I think, to do that. And I just wasn't as brave. The play came out of all of that. Mm-hmm. And I learned very quickly in 2015, which is when the play Pussy Valley was produced, that it should have been a TV show because there was just so much going on and so many interesting characters, and the dynamics just begged for a deeper exploration that could go on for multiple seasons. And so I decided to go out to LA and pitch it. And I remember everybody was clutching their pearls, at my pitch. Because I just think they were this is titillating, this is interesting, but there's just no way in hell that we're going to do a show about strip clubs, black women down south, stripping, just because it was like a cultural landmine. There's this history of the hypersexualization of black women. And so I just think that people are very hesitant to take that on. But when I sat down with Starz and I explained to them that this was not, this glamorization of strip club culture. It was actually a humanization project that I was embarking on. They really, really understood where I was coming from. And they gave me that shot. They were the only place that said yes. But as my mama always said, all you need is one yes, girl. And you just gone through the door. What you gonna do with your yes? And so this is my yes.
Oh my gosh, that should be on a bumper sticker. What are you gonna do with your yes? For me, the show just every episode feels like a quiet revolution.
Ooh, I love that.
Yeah, because a lot of that's through the show's Black female agency and it's queer agency where, strippers are in control of their bodies, which is such an historical contrast to how strippers and their families are typically portrayed in the media. I mean, the biggest episode this season, the one that's been talked about a lot, is the story of one of the strippers, Mercedes, helping her 14-year-old daughter grapple with the decision of whether or not to get an abortion. In the scene we're about to hear, Mercedes and her daughter Terica are talking about the fact that Mercedes actually got pregnant with Terica as a teenager and had questioned at the time whether or not to get an abortion herself.
You did want an abortion?
I'd be lying if I say I never considered. But that's all I ever did was consider. Because Patrice ain't give me no choice. She made me have you. And you know what? I'm thankful every day. Because sometimes God uses the devil to give you your blessing. All I ever wanted was for you to have choices, Terica, and to make them for yourself.
It's a very emotional and very complex scene. And I'm wondering why that issue, the issue of abortion, is something you wanted to tackle in the show.
I think it's because it is so emblematic of just the Black female experience. And I just think it's so important to be honest about everything that we're going through. You know, it's not a lot of us who live at the intersection of race, class, and gender. And to have that intersectional identity, we just don't see the complexity of that often in media. And so I always say we're trying to put vitamins in the Kool-Aid. Like, we want to talk about real stuff that everyone is going through this very specific lens so that it can feel and be universal. I mean, I love when we drop an episode and you see the comments on Twitter or on Facebook or on Instagram, and people are kind of rising up and saying, oh my God, that's me. Mercedes is me. Terica is me. Big Teak is me. We're dealing with issues that, you know, a lot of people don't even want to talk about in their own families. Like, it's not only abortion. We're talking about mental health. We're talking about suicide. And, you know, from the outside, it could be like, oh my God, that's a lot to take on for a TV show. But I think when you, like I said, you're writing about characters that have they have multiple identities that they're dealing with. You know, it just makes sense that what they're going through would resonate with so many different types of people. So we take on a lot, and I feel as though as a Black writer, as a Black female writer, it's kind of my responsibility, right? I have this platform. Millions of people are watching this show. So I think that's one of the main reasons as to why we tell the stories that we do. We tell the kind of deep and dark stories that we do, which, you know, some people have been a little, I would say, they're uncomfortable. They've been made to feel very uncomfortable. But, you know, sometimes it's really hard to look in the mirror. Sometimes it's really hard to look at your reflection, especially when you don't like what you see. But that's the power, I think, in this particular medium of TV, where we are going to just be honest, be true. We use, as I say, fiction in order to tell the truth.
And you just said this great thing about putting the vitamin C in the Kool-Aid. Like, how do you write about these very complex and maybe contentious topics without having the stamp of issue show or without being preachy?
I think it has a lot to do with the fact that it's all very character-based. It could come off very easily, I think, in the wrong hands as, like you said, very preachy, heavy-handed, like even political. But for us, because we've created these characters that feel so real, and we've created characters that people like really want to hang out with. Like, everybody and their mama want an Uncle Clifford in their life. Everybody want a roulette as their friend, right? Whew. So by tackling these issues and these stories through these characters that, you know, just feel like your homegirl or your homeboy, you know, I think in a weird way, you're able to take in the vitamins a little bit more.
Yeah. And I mean, two of the characters and their storylines that I find particularly interesting is the relationship between Uncle Clifford and Lil Murda. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if you could tell us about those characters.
So Uncle Clifford is the owner of the Pink. She has been wrestling with trying to, you know, keep the Pink, you know, in her hands and keep the Pink, you know, fiscally healthy. She is non-binary, but she goes by, she uses she and her pronouns. Mm-hmm. And even in season 1, you know, she began to cultivate this in-the-closet relationship with this up-and-coming trapper rapper named Lil Murda. And initially, it felt like just this kind of lusty sexual connection, but over time, it has grown to be something deeper. I think Lil Murda, in that he is, you know, so masculine, so sexy, like has all this swag and has not been he's honest with himself about, I think, his identity, but I think that he is well aware that, as a rapper who does, gangster rap, if he came out, he knows that he wouldn't be, I would say, embraced. Mm-hmm. And so last season, LaMurda, in an attempt to kind of flex in front of this music executive, he basically dismisses Uncle Clifford, which, hurts her to her core, and kind of brings into sharp relief this thing of, can, these two, human beings, one who has a more feminine gender performance and this other one who has a more masculine gender performance, can these two kind of live loudly in the light in a relationship? And so that has been one of the major struggles over the course of these past 2 seasons for these two particular characters. What I have found so interesting, and I joke about this all the time, I'm like, did I just create, a stripper show so that I could hopefully write one of the best love stories between 2 Black queer people of all time? Because it's so interesting that people are so invested in this relationship. The will they or won't they make
I'm
it.
Here for it.
Everyone, even people who, are low-key homophobic or high-key homophobic, they still...
Because Lil Murder is so tender.
Because he's a tenderoni. He absolutely is a lover, and he's also a fighter.
How come you let me back inside? Because you needed me, and I needed you.
All right, after the break, we're talking about some other lovers and fighters, the folks on social media who cannot stop arguing over P-Valley.
We just did not know how much there would be an uproar to the point where there was a cancel P-Valley hashtag.
Stay with us, y'all.
Support for this NPR podcast and the following message come from Faherty. There is a universal urge to make the most out of summer. The Faherty family captures the feeling of summer and adventure in their collection of high-quality, incredibly soft and comfortable clothing. Their clothes are crafted with a classic style. Faherty offers a lifetime guarantee to repair, replace, or refund any Faherty purchase for life. Head to FahertyBrand.com/codeswitch for 20% off your order today.
Parker.
Gene.
Code Switch. Okay, well, Gene, you may have seen this, but earlier this year there was a P-Valley social media uproar that had me feeling some type of way. Basically, there was an episode of the show that featured 2 scenes that people had very different reactions to. One was a sex scene between 2 Black women, and the other was between 2 Black men. And when I saw the discussions happening on Twitter after the episode came out, there seemed to be such a difference in reaction between those 2 scenes. Now, a lot of the people I saw talking were totally fine with the scene between the 2 women, but seemed utterly freaked out by the scene between the men. So I asked Katori what she made of that moment and how she decided whether or not to respond.
That moment in particular, I must say, I was really surprised. I mean, by design, we wanted to have those 2 sex scenes in the same episode, right? We had an inkling that people would be a little bit like, oh, but we just did not know how much there would be an uproar to the point where there was a cancel P-Valley hashtag that was created.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And so I actually got sick with COVID that week. So I was like, is this like God trying to help me or hurt me? Both? I don't know. But so I actually did not respond to that particular hubbub. But my amazing co-EP, Patrick Ian Polk, queer icon who created Noah's Ark, he stepped into the fray for me. And he has had a history of, there being so much just homophobia and that's been thrown at his work, and to see, what, we thought was a very kind of beautiful sex scene be, seen as, or touted as, some kind of emasculation project, for Black men. He was just very, very frustrated by that. And so, he basically was like, the gay ain't going nowhere. This may not be for you. Like, and it's true. Like I said before, the gayness, queerness is so important to all of my work, because I want to show all Black people in my work. I'm not just focused on one type of us. And so, obviously tweets were going viral that week. Like I said, that cancel P Valley hashtag was popping for a minute, child, because they were just up in arms. And I think it has a lot to do with this. We are so comfortable with especially when it comes to the Black male body, for that queerness to look and feel soft and feminine. But when it comes to a more masculine, and dare I say even hyper masculine visual articulation of gay Black male identity, it feels like a threat. It brings up these icky feelings of, are there men on the down low trying to, dupe Black women? When in all actuality, it's just that there are some men who are same gender loving men who are probably uncomfortable with being honest with other people as to who they love or who they like, because of the reaction that we got, because of the homophobia. And so they're not as expressive, like yeah, this my dude, and that is why I think we almost, in a weird way, kind of proved the point of the entire story. This is the reason why Big Teak and Lil Murder aren't walking down the streets holding hands, even though they may want to. It's because they know that the world is not interested in that particular articulation of Black gay male identity. So, it's that particular episode, that scene specifically really, really, blew people's minds and disgusted some people. And I always say it's kind of like a Rorschach test, because your reaction to the scene kind of said more about you than anything else. It'll continue over the course of the season, and has continued over the course of the season. But what I have found super interesting is the same people who are like, I ain't gonna watch P Valley no more. I ain't gonna watch it. They be watching, child. They watch every episode. No. And I think that's what a good TV show does. It makes you uncomfortable, and you like, oh my God, I'm never gonna watch this show again. Oh, F this show. And then all of a sudden, you at the season finale, thinking that you was only going to watch, you weren't going to watch another episode, but you've, ended up watching the whole 10.
Your exploration of Black queerness in the South specifically is a topic that you also dive into in your play The Hot Wing King, which also featured the actor Nico Anand.
Yes.
Who plays Uncle Clifford on P Valley.
Yeah.
Why is that a theme that feels important to keep coming back to? Do you feel... sorry, go ahead.
No, I think that's such a great question. I've been thinking about this a lot, too, because it's like, Katori, you're not a gay Black man. Like, why do you keep on writing these stories that are not necessarily your experience? And real talk, I just think that's what a damn good writer does. Like, I think it is imperative that we write outside of our experience. I think it is healing. I think it is what makes you a dope artist. The fact that I can put myself in the shoes of another person, and through my imagination, walk their walk. I also, I do continue to do a lot of research. I know that I don't know everything about what it feels like, what it is like to be Black and queer in the South. And so I ask questions. I do a hell of a lot of research, whether it's, doing interviews with people, which is definitely what I did with the Hot Wing King. I sat down with my brother and his partner, and that's who the play is based on. And I really wanted to hear how it was as these two Black men who just broke through and decided that they were going to be together, like just so that people know, like the Hot Wing King is about two Black gay men in Memphis, Tennessee. And one of them has recently just kind of come out of the closet, is in the midst of a divorce, has sons, like has lived that life, like a hetero life, and has decided that he's going to be true to himself. And over the weekend of as they prepare for a hot wing contest, they kind of really, put 10 toes down in terms of their relationship and how they're going to move forward together as a couple. And so the fact that my brother and his partner had lived that life. I wanted to kind of like dedicate this show to their love and to their resilience. And so, yes, it requires a lot of imagination on my part, but I always bake in the truth, especially when it's not exactly my own life experience.
How do you feel when people get called out for writing about communities that other than their own, or for doing it badly?
For me, I have run into some, I would say, tricky interpretations of other communities, from people who are outside of that community. Like when a white person is writing about the Black community in any way. I think what can be your saving grace, and what has been my saving grace, is that I have surrounded myself with people who are from that community in terms of the writer's room, and the fact that when I come to the table, I come with questions more so than answers, because I know that that's not my lived experience.
Yeah, and I mean, like, who is in the writer's room? Like, what kind of perspectives do you rely on to help tell the stories that are of these very different characters in a way that feels meaningful or satisfying, and like the dreaded word is like authentic, but like what?
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I think that's such a great question. We are, I would say, it's more than half made of women, more than half queer, people who identify as being queer. We always have a dancer or two at the table.
Yes.
For the past 2 seasons, absolutely. We've had people who have participated in different lanes of sex work, not just stripping. Mm-hmm. I also just want people who have different approaches to story. I must say I'm very character-centric, and so I try to bring into the fold people who think more about plot, or people who think more about theme, or people who think in symbols. It's just a really, diverse, beautiful, grounded, and honest, brutally honest room. And I'm very, very blessed that I have been able to find, as I call them, my hitters.
Yeah. Do you think P-Valley is a fairy tale? Like, there's some magical realism throughout the season, whether it's, talking to ghosts, or a fear of hate. And in one episode, I think someone says, like, a fairy tale is a horror story with a happy ending.
No, it's not a fairy tale at all. And it is so grounded in reality.
This ain't no fairy tale. This the real world. And in the real world, all us got the power to rewrite our own destinies. Handsome princes can become fire-breathing dragons. Trusty sidekicks can become angels of death. And even damsels can become their own damn saviors.
I do think some people get their fairy tale, but as in life, just like in a TV show, because you get to do it over and over again, there's some days that feel better than others for our characters. Mm-hmm. I don't think that P-Valley will ever participate in a kind of like complete happy ending for any of our characters. And it's interesting because I know that a lot of our audience members, they need that. But I just think that to speak honestly, about what is happening today, especially with where the show is set. We just have to be way more honest and real. But I do think that some people can get their fairy tales. I think the characters that get that have to grind for that fairy tale. I do think that despite all the darkness, there is light in Chuckalissa, but it's just not every day.
Once again, that was Katori Hall. She's the creator of the show P-Valley, which is just wrapping up its second season on Starz.
All right, Parker, I'm convinced. I'm going to move this up my queue, my to-watch queue. I'm going to start watching the show this week. On your suggestion, after this conversation.
Because, I'm going to need someone to watch season 3 with me.
I got you.
And that's our show. We want to hear from you. Email us at codeswitch@npr.org. You can follow us on IG and Twitter. We're at NPR Codeswitch. Subscribe to our newsletter at npr.org/codeswitchnewsletter.
This episode was produced by Alyssa Jong Perry and edited by Leah Donnella and Dahlia Mortada. And a shout out to the rest of the Code Switch Massive: Karen Grisby Bates, Christina Kala, Kumari Devarajan, Jess Kung, Summer Tomad, Deepa Motasham, and Steve Drummond.
I'm B.A. Parker.
And I'm Gene Demby. Be easy, y'all.
Hydrate. Hey there. Just wanted to give a quick shout out to our Code Switch Plus listeners. We appreciate you and thank you for being a subscriber. Subscribing to Code Switch Plus means getting to listen to all of our episodes without any sponsor breaks. And it also helps support our show. So if you love our work, please consider signing up at plus.npr.org/codeswitch.